Coalition today released a statement in response to NEDLAC's decision not to grant us our right to have a protected strike action for workers on 30 September, but on a later date, and committed that the march would continue despite this attempt. NUMSA, on behalf of all unions, applied well in advance for permission from NEDLAC's Section 77 committee to hold a protected strike on the 30th of September. NUMSA followed the correct procedure for securing permission. At the meeting on the 25th of September, a certificate was granted, which meant that any strike action could only take place starting 14 days from this date. This attempt by NEDLAC to frustrate the right of workers to strike will not hamper plans or the mobilization of union members to exercise their legitimate right to march against corruption. It increases pressure on employers to lend their support to this nationwide protest against the widespread corruption that result in far greater losses to the country and the economy than a day of protest action. However, now that NEDLAC has taken this undemocratic maneuver, it means that the strike action is unprotected. Therefore, we are not calling on workers to embark on a strike on Wednesday unless they have made arrangements with their employers. NUMSA has taken all steps necessary to inform its members of the situation and calls on all those who will not be working on night shift, etc., to join the marches on the 30th of September. The union has today, the 28th of September, issued a strike notice, and the national strike against corruption will now take place on the 14th of October 2015. Now is the time for all workers in the private and public sector to lead the struggle against rampant corruption. The marches on the 30th of September are the first of a series of anti-corruption events planned by the coalition. In accordance with the Section 77 certificate, a second action, which will be a protected strike, supported by the Unite Against Corruption movement, will take place on the 14th of October. This phased action has the full support of all organizing parties involved in the coalition. The undemocratic maneuver by NEDLAC has only strengthened our resolve. The coalition has been hit hard by the Section 77 committee's decision, but this will not deter or dissuade the organizers, and the Unite Against Corruption will go ahead and the marches as planned on Wednesday the 30th of September. Arts, civil society organizations, trade unions, faith-based organizations, members of academia and individuals have signed on to the call to action, and all are outraged at the scale of corruption that is taking place. The aim is to let the public and private sector leaders know that the people living in this country have had enough of systematic corruption in our society and will not stand by any longer while corruption cripples our economy, destroys jobs, steals from the poor, sabotages service delivery, and undermines our democracy. The list of demands calls for a commitment by both government and big business to prioritize combating the corruption that impacts so negatively on every aspect of our lives, and to commit to bringing the guilty to justice. The full list of demands has now been released to the media in advance of Wednesday's actions. The demands focus on the need to end corruption that hampers delivery of goods and basic services, ensure transparent and accountable leadership, institute effective enforcement of anti-corruption laws, ensure greater protection, such as the Public Protector's Office, demand greater accountability from business, ensure transparent regulation of public procurement, and prevent corruption that leads to job losses.
Can we have a word from each of the panelists? All right, we'll take questions from the floor then. We'll take 3 at a time if you don't mind. We'll make notes. I note you. And you, and you. Please go ahead, ma'am, in front. Please say your name and where you're from.
Thank you. It's Helena Sino from Power FM. Are you still going ahead on Wednesday with the 2 marches in Cape Town and Pretoria, or is it just the one? And then also just some more details around the march on Wednesday, the logistics of that. How many people are you expecting? Thank you.
Right, can I take you?
Joy Summers, carte blanche. Is there not a concern that by splitting the march you may weaken your position?
Rich Butler from the Daily Maverick. Is the EFF going to be joining you on Wednesday? And if so, how?
I'll take the logistics question from Power FM. If I can ask Dr. Julie to talk about the to answer carte blanche on splitting the march, and Mr. John there on the EFF.
The march is organized by the collusion of organization and trade unions, and it is going ahead as such. It's just that it has been hampered by the maneuver by NEDLEC, who were very clear in a way that we were mobilizing for the 30th. On the 4th, they considered our application. It was considered and we registered on the record in that meeting that we've got a deadlock. They set over just doing a simple thing, to write to us and say the matter has been considered, is unresolved, and in order to sabotage the 30th, and instead they decided to give us the date of the 25th as a response. And that was only after we wrote to them to say, we are preparing, we want to take workers to a legal protected action, where do you stand? They respond by calling a meeting. In that meeting on the 25th, all what they did was to go through motions of what happened on the meeting of the 4th. It was just a sham, and after that they throw us with a certificate to say, fine, you can march, but you will have to comply with the notice of 2 weeks. 14 days, which meant that therefore we needed to take the decision we're taking now, that we're being sabotaged, and we are firmly resolute that the march on the 30th must be a success, and therefore that's why we're calling on all workers who will be working night shift, and the youth and civil society and everybody else and communities to join the action on the 30th. They have given us an advantage of a first phase of this march. On the 14th, we will come back to come and collect responses to our demands.
The 2 marches on the 30th of September, the one in Cape Town and the one in Pretoria, are going ahead. Now, these marches are organized by civil society and trade unions. Now, all other organizations who are supporting the struggle against corruption are welcome to join the march. We have heard from the press and read in the media that EFF has announced that they will be coming to the march and support the struggle against corruption. They have not formally communicated to the Unite Against Corruption Coalition of their participation, but this march is mainly for civil society and trade unions, and the speakers will come mainly from these sectors on the day, both in Cape Town and in Pretoria.
So on the, we actually have Cape Town, Pretoria, Durban, Grahamstown, and other places, Polokwane as well. So people have joined the march and they are mobilizing in their numbers. We can't give specific numbers at the moment, but we know that tens of thousands of people will come, and that's what we're hoping for. Can we take the next round, please?
Can I just make a comment about the splitting of the marches? I think it's also important to note that this march, we expect it to be huge, but we also know that it's going to be really the starting point from which this movement operates. So the march is essentially about us really kicking off the Unite Against Corruption campaign and we want to make sure that it's something that lasts. It's a long-term solution to a problem that we're facing. So I think it's really important to know that this is not a once-off event, but rather the 30th is happening and then the 14th is happening, and things will happen after that.
Take another round. I recognize Jason in the shirt, and then the guy in the white shirt down here. Anybody else? And one more down there. Okay, please go ahead, sir.
Hi, Colin Haskell from the Business Day. Question for Nomsa. Mr. Jim, you said you declared a dispute, or you indicated that there was a deadlock on the 4th. That, if I understood you correctly, you said you sent a letter then to NEDLAC. Could you just Nomsa make available all this correspondence with NEDLAC? Thank you.
Amos Paho from SABC Radio News. Just a point of clarity on logistics. Have you received permissions yet from concerned municipalities where you'll be having this matches?
I think we can answer that.
Philip Debate from the Mail and Guardian. Did you canvass those affected by the demands? So, for instance, is the public protector in support of your call for criminal action in cases of defamation of the public protector?
All right. Erwin, if you can take the first two questions, and then we have our legal representative in the room, so I'll ask him to take the last question.
What was the first question?
Okay, Carl wants to know if you can make available documents.
Oh, I think on the deadlock, we will issue a record straight, which will have details on what has happened. So you will receive that this afternoon on what happened at NEDLAC. I know many have said Nomsa have jumped the gun. They jumped, not us. We follow protocols. We follow protocols at NEDLAC, and we've complied. And we are just being sabotaged. And we are not surprised. The constituencies at NEDLAC, they are made up of people. Community, for instance, is represented by the communist, somebody from the Communist Party. COSATU is continuing to field the people who will make sure that indeed this action is sabotage. You would have heard Stu more recently, who said to all unions who stand together with us, who will join us on the 14th. And by the way, we're calling all workers to join this action, regardless of those tracks, that those affiliates will be participating at their own peril. So that was the tract. I mean, since when to march can be marching at your own peril, to exercise your right. You are told by a trade union leader, you're doing it at your own peril. What is he promising? So in relation to ordinances and bylaws, this is a lawful march. We have been granted, we have applied. Where the protest action will take place, we have complied.
The gentleman on the question relating to permits and the regulations of Gathering Act. My name is Michael Power. I'm an attorney at the Legal Resources Centre. We've given the appropriate notice to both the City of Cape Town and the Tshwane Metropolitan Police Department. We've had follow-up conveners meetings, and we've reached agreement with the responsible officers and authorised members in both jurisdictions for the protest to go ahead lawfully.
I think there was a question about public protector.
Yeah, the public protector.
Gathering point.
Oh, this was the issue.
So the question was whether or not we canvassed the people whose demands were making. And so did we talk to the public protector? Now, the public protector has come out in support of the march and the demands that you've made. She's actually published something saying that she supports the march, not necessarily, specifically to the demands. But we have canvassed broadly on the issues that we've listed in our demands. All right. The next round of questions?
I think they're ready to go and to mobilize.
Okay. I recognize you, and then Yandelanga here, and then one more. Hang on a second. Okay, sorry. Venue. This venue here. So.
Thank you. Mr. Jim, this is especially for you. You've gone out massively mobilizing workers. Are you at all concerned that anyone will join, they won't get the message, and then they could be fired? How are you planning to get that message out, particularly to workers who aren't your members?
First, I think we're getting that message through you now. That workers must know that they don't have a protected action on the 30th. And we are not calling for workers who are supposed to be at work to join the march. Only those employers who are progressive, who will take a stand that they are willing to release their workers to join the march on the 30th. And we hope that workers in the afternoon who would have timed themselves that they will be able to be in a march and still be at work. And workers who will work night shift on the 30th must join the action. But we have been combining this mobilization not just in the shop floor. We've been linking shop floor campaign with community. I was addressing the community of Citibank on Saturday in a packed hall. So we're convinced that the people will come out to join this action. And this dress rehearsal on the 30th, and we must all go all out. On the 14th, it will be mother of all battle.
Okay, can you take that?
I just wanted to know, you're a huge union with agreements with youth employer federation section. Can't you arrange with them for workers to attend this march?
Well, to your surprise, employers are very brutal. First, you must appreciate that we're going through the phase of retrenchments as we speak. And if they were to have a chance of finding workers going out on an illegal protected being hailed this by Nedley, they will use that opportunity to attack workers. Already we've seen SIFSA and others, they have communicated to say this action is unprotected, and we would have expected that progressive associations like that should be behaving differently. That's why we can't take risks. But I mean, we're making this call, we will talk to big employers without necessarily announcing to say if they can be able to release workers on the 30th, because basically corruption is a cancer in society. It destroys jobs. Chronism that is taking place around SOEs is basically exporting jobs. I mean, we have Transnet that took 50 billion tender to two companies, not China Rail, not China South. We've got a company that is closing at Union Courage. And purely when you look at some of the decisions that get taken against a government that is got a background that champions localization, procuring locally, you can see that there is an agenda which we must unmask with this particular action to say we must champion localization. And in fact, SOEs are supposed to be putting up stimulus packages to create jobs.
Okay, can you take the lady from the start?
I wanted to find out if the program on the 14th would be the same as Wednesdays.
Somebody on the steering committee has to take that one.
Well, on the 14th, it will be very creative. The 14th will be very creative, I must say, because we will be dealing with corruption, but we will be doing many other things that are creative, which we will announce at that point.
It's just a logistics question, routes, times, etc., etc.
John will take
Mike is best place.
Oh, it's not Mike.
So in relation to routes and gatherings times, we'll start with Cape Town. The Cape Town march will be starting at 11 o'clock at Keizersgracht. We'll be moving down Keizersgracht, along Darling Street, left into Adderley Street, left into Plain Street, left into Spin Street, right into Plain Street, passing Parliament. Participants will then move back to Keizersgracht, following Ruland Street, left into Patenkamp Street, and again right into Darling Street. In Pretoria, the gathering will commence at 11. Participants are encouraged to gather outside of Burgers Park. Thereafter, the procession will move along Lillian and Goy Street, right into Francis Bard Street, left into Nelson Mandela Drive, right into Stansville Pape Street, and then left into the gardens of the Union buildings.
Those details are in the press statement which we will hand out after this session.
So no Hatfield.